Hello and welcome back to another video today here again on Forza Horizon 5 to test out Series 9's first car pass car, which is this Aston Martin DBX. Yes, I am aware it did come out a week ago and a few people have tried this out, but this is the first chance I've had to take a look at this new edition. So, of course, being a four-wheel drive SUV capable of some level of off-roading, I've brought it to my usual on-road road test route. Although, to be fair, you're very unlikely to see one of these ever leave the road, on purpose at least, unless they're in some kind of terrible accident. Surprisingly though, despite this being an SUV, it is actually out of the three car pass cars in Series 9, my favourite, the other two being a very irrelevant Lexus and Nissan of some description. These three are also the final car pass cars. There will be no more after this, of course, with the expansion coming out soon. As much as I disapprove of performance car manufacturers building SUVs, I do see why they do it, and out of all of them, the DBX probably is my favourite of them. It's one of the few built from the ground up, rather than just being a rebadged Audi like most of them are, although it does steal a lot of parts from Mercedes's, including the engine and most of the interior. I've gone for the default blue because for some reason Forza haven't bothered including any nice metallic greens, only a sort of hideous, almost yellow green colour that can only be described as fluorescent urine. Anyway, as for the car itself, the engine, like I said, is from a Mercedes. It's a twin turbocharged 4-litre Mercedes V8 producing 543 horsepower, although looking it up on the internet seems to suggest it's one less than that, at 542, and it produces 700 Nm of torque, which is a lot of power, even if we do now have an even more powerful version in reality, which of course is too new to be in Forza until many years' time. It does, however, rather unsurprisingly, weigh a massive 2,245 kilos, which, given it's an SUV, is kind of to be expected. It is of course all-wheel drive, and here in Forza it starts in A-Class at 732 PI. In reality, all of this performance in your big SUV will set you back 162,000 and upwards here in the UK. On the downhill section of the motorway it got up to over 180 miles an hour, which is plenty for a car this huge. So, as this Aston Martin DBX is the choice for the F1 medical car, it stands to reason that it should be reasonable around a track to get to important medical emergencies quickly. So we're here at the festival for the usual 5 laps that I take all new cars for to see how they can perform and what the best lap time it can set is. Now, supposedly according to the performance index of this car at 732, it's one faster or one better than the Toyota Supra that we took around here, although to be fair that car had 9 laps because I was using it as a DRS car that month, so had more laps around here and set a 1:11.4. So it'll be interesting to see how this compares. I've even painted it in the lovely green colour used on the safety car, which is what I was looking for earlier in the manufacturer colours and for some reason wasn't available. To be fair to this car, it did handle amazingly well around the festival given it's an SUV. Had endless grip, which you might expect from the all-wheel drive, but also turned in a lot more sharply and had minimal understeer, which was a bit of a surprise to me given it's big and heavy and all-wheel drive. Despite all of that though, it was still a little bit slower than the Supra. So yes, the best lap time the DBX could set around the festival was a 1:11.965, putting it half a second slower than that Supra, that it should theoretically be a tiny bit faster than, or at least match. To be fair, that car did have 9 laps, however there are at least one other car that's faster than this, the Audi TTS, at 724 PI, that was still faster. So not all that fast, but considering it's PI, but considering it's a big SUV, not too bad at all. So in terms of upgrades and customization, there's the usual rear-wheel drive conversion available for all all-wheel drive cars, horrible Forza Aero and many engine swaps, including the twin-turbo V12 from the DB11, which is very nice to see as an option, although there's nothing else interesting or special that can be applied to this car. So after taking a look at all of the options, I built the DBX to the top of A-Class before returning here to the festival for another 5 laps to see how fast it could go. I did actually go for the V12 engine swap this time, even though I usually avoid it, although that's probably a stupid option. I just went for it because it's an Aston Martin, and I kind of felt like a V12 would be appropriate. Although it turned out not all that good at all. I also tried to focus on weight reduction after putting that engine in, with flywheel and driveline put in as well to bring the weight down even further. I could only then get away with rally tyres though, which perhaps wasn't the greatest, although in A that should be plenty, and went for a race gearbox to try and improve that a bit. So the car now weighs 1758 kilos, so it's still heavy, but a huge improvement, and power is now up to 608 horsepower. Despite all of that though, I think mostly because I went for the engine swap, which I probably shouldn't have done, it wasn't very fast at all. So the best lap time I could get out of the upgraded DBX was a 108.115, meaning it's the only A-class car I've upgraded that's got into the 108s, the fastest being in the 106s, and even things like the Dodge Magnum being into the 107s, only just, but it is the worst A-class car I've managed to build, mostly because I got a bit carried away putting a V12 in for absolutely no reason, although I think anyway, it is an SUV at the end of the day. It's never going to be that brilliant. So overall, the DBX is, well, I still really like them. They're my favourite sports, fast, new SUV thing, probably. So yeah, it's a really cool car, handles amazingly well for an SUV, and, well, is pretty quick for an SUV, but is slightly slow for its PI here in Forza. Standard and upgraded, it's never going to be that quick, I don't think, either, but it is still incredibly cool to have this finally added to the game. So yeah, do go and drive this thing, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend using it for anything timed or anything racing. It's just a nice car to drive and a nice car to have. But there we go. That is going to be all for a first look at the Aston Martin DBX. I know this car came out last week and it's the Lexus-y thing this week, so do let me know if you'd like to see me take a look at the Lexus potentially in a video next week, or if you're interested in the Nissan either, because I could potentially take a look at either of those, although I'm not terribly excited about them. But for now, for a first look at the DBX, that is going to be all, so thank you very much for watching, and I will be back with the next video very soon.